Day 29 of 50 states in 50 days takes us here to the great state of Wisconsin in Green Bay. It is Packers training camp, and you know at Packers training camp, there's only one way to get to camp. Got to ride a bike. Hi, what's your name?
Sawyer.
Hey, Sawyer, could I borrow your bike just to get to camp?
Yes.
All right, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. All right, let's try this. I think I kind of need to redeem myself on the bike, too. Okay, here we go. All right, Packers training camp. SportsCenter starts now.
Let's get you out to the Badger State Packers camp. And I'm going to assume Shae and Ryan have become honorary cheeseheads by now.
Well, Shae, at a minimum, we saw became a Packers fan for a day. Didn't you, Miss Cornette?
Whoa, Chi-Town.
Right
Saw
out
the
of
shirt.
Listen, guys, it's funny how you guys can talk all that talk from Connecticut. I'll see what you do when you're in your rival's
Just
home state.
saying.
But nonetheless, good to be here in Wisconsin. We got Packers camp and the big guys behind us here, so we're going to hope we don't get hit. But next to me for the next 3 hours is none other than Ryan Clark. Ryan, thanks for being with us. 50 states in 50 days.
Hey, no, thanks for having me. To have a Chicago native, right, a rival with me in Wisconsin makes me feel like I'd be protected or we could be attacked.
Yeah, either one. We don't really know. We can already smell the cheese curds here, and it's like 11 a.m. local. So that's all fine and good. Let's talk a little bit about this Packers team, though. And we start with last season in Jordan Love. He enters now his third year as the starter. A little bit of an up and down season last year. Some injuries probably played into that. The receivers dropping the balls, the guys just talked about. We'll dive into that in a minute. But when you look at Jordan Love's tape from last year and the expectations for this season, what do you see?
I mean, we've been waiting for Jordan Love to take that next step. Think about how he finished the 2023 season. He was one of the best quarterbacks the back half of that season. He goes into Dallas and has this amazing, huge win on the road. But then we watch the interceptions become a problem in the biggest moments of the season. You go back to last year, you think starting the season with the knee injury. Now he's healthy in the playoffs. He turns the football over versus the Philadelphia Eagles, and a chance the Green Bay Packers had an opportunity to win. And so for Jordan Love, it's going to be about still doing the great thing, still being fearless in the way he pushes the football down the field, but protecting the football in critical situational football moments.
As we stay with the offense here, and the guys mentioned it, the receivers had a lot of drops. In fact, these Packers receivers led the league in drops. It was a problem, but then they go to the draft. They draft not one, but two wide receivers, so obviously it was an area of concern. But is that a fixable thing now?
You know what was funny? We always had the discussion of, do they have a number one receiver? And many of us settled into the fact that they didn't need one, that they could spread the football around. But they went out and got Matthew Golden in the first round, another speed guy, because Christian Watson is recovering from a terrible knee injury. So now Matthew Golden can stretch the defense, but he's also a route runner, a guy that can move into the slot. So he fits in with the versatility of guys like Jalen Reed and Romeo Doubs. And also think about the way that they can utilize their tight ends in Tucker Kraft and Musgrave. They have everything they need to be explosive, but we can't keep talking about receivers and quarterbacks and not mention how good Josh Jacobs was last year for Matt LaFleur's offense.
Okay, so let's stay with that in Josh Jacobs. He was phenomenal, over 1,300 yards, and it feels like maybe he had to put a lot of the offense on his shoulders because of the injuries to Jordan Love and the drops by the receivers. But now can he replicate that again this year?
I don't know if you've ever seen Josh Jacobs without pads. Those are some big dang shoulders.
I haven't. And we're going to see him here though, shortly. He's going to come over and chat with us.
And he's a guy that can carry the load, but I think that was sort of a blessing in disguise for the Green Bay Packers. It's for Matt LaFleur to get so creative in the run game, utilize Josh Jacobs in so many ways, also utilizing him in the pass game. It showed what a valuable piece he was to this offense. And now we don't have to let Jordan Love take that next step by forcing him in to the top tier of quarterbacks. It could be run first into the play action, and we saw how physicality drove this team into the playoffs, and I think that's how they start 2025 as well.
And you got to factor in the fact, too, that Josh Jacobs is now year 2 in Green Bay, maybe a little bit more comfortable with this offense and the play calling by LaFleur and so on and so forth. Now we open it up to the division, though. This is a really tough division in the NFC North. It was a few years ago where we weren't exactly saying that. The Bears are improved. We saw what the Lions were able to do last season, and of course the Vikings. I know they have a new quarterback, but nonetheless, where do you think the Packers rank in this division?
First off, I love the wishful thinking by the Chicago Bears fan. The first team that she mentions is the Bears are improved. Well, they had to improve over last year, but no, this is an extremely tough division. You start with the Bears, who last year finished 4th. You have Ben Johnson now. You add things to the offensive line. The defense was already a defense that could pressure the quarterback quarterback and stop the run. So they'll be better. Detroit, a team that really has been on the cusp of a championship the last 2 years. But how do they replace Ben Johnson? How do they replace Aaron Glenn? And then obviously when you think about the Minnesota Vikings, Sam Darnold to J.J. McCarthy, to me, the consistency here in Green Bay, the Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur connection, Jeff Hafley in his second year, I believe this team, to me, has the consistency to win it all. Not only the NFC North, but the NFC as a whole.
It's been a minute since the Packers have gotten that done. There's a big banner, empty banner. I hear they have a new locker room here. There's a big hole in the wall waiting for that next Super Bowl championship. If you guys look around, it is so crowded here at training camp. Even a Bears fan, I have to whisper this, can appreciate what I am seeing around. It packed. There are people in the streets. So we'll be back throughout the next 3 hours, guys, and we'll have special guests joining us along the way as well. And you're looking at the Lambeau Leap statue where fans can go pose in front of that, pretend like they're actually doing it. Spoiler alert, I actually tried the real thing earlier today.
Tried.
I tried is the key word there. You can see Packers players running out of the tunnel. 30 youngest team to make the playoffs in the last 35 seasons last year. They've been the youngest team the last 2 years in a row. This year they're a little older. Not by much, though. We're live from training camp in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I got special guests with me, too. I'm lucky. Not all 50 states in 50 days get guests, but look at what's happening here. Ryan Clark is still with us, obviously, and Rob Demovsky, our Packers reporter, is joining us now. And so, Rob, I'm going to tap into your brain a little bit since you've been around this team throughout the offseason, through training camp, and for years. I know the expectation every year for this year is Super Bowl or bust. They fell short of that expectation the last couple of years. Matt LaFleur knows how to win. In fact, since he's arrived here in Green Bay, no team in the NFC has won more games. What are the expectations now for this Packers team?
Shae, in the last segment, you mentioned the new locker room that's been renovated. If you walk down that hall, you'll notice that there's banners. There's 13 of them for each championship they've won, 1929 to 2010. And after 2010, there's a blank one. This team knows that that's the expectation. I talked to cornerback Nate Hobbs, who came here in free agency, and I asked him if he noticed that empty banner, and he said right away, and it's been too long of a gap between 2010 and now. General Manager Brian Gutekunst, who has put this young team together, has said several times, it's time we make this step forward. He said in his opening press conference a couple of days ago, we've had a lot of regular season success around here, but it's time we take that next step. And Jordan Love said it is definitely time.
You know, I love the fact that you ended with Jordan Love, because think about taking that next step. You have the San Francisco 49ers 2 years ago in the divisional round. You had that team beat.
Yeah, you did.
Jordan Love has turnovers late. We see the same thing against the Philadelphia Eagles. Right now, with the skill room looking as it looks, the way that Brian Gutekunst has built it, do they believe Jordan Love has everything he needs to take that next step?
You know, this offseason, RC, it was a big topic. Did Jordan Love regress? Love and Matt LaFleur pushed back hard on that. They talked about the injury that he had in that opener against the Eagles. He didn't play the next 2 weeks. We saw Malik Willis come in and do a great job as a backup, but it took a while for Jordan to get his legs back under him, and I think that's the drop-off in numbers. They won more games than they did 2 years ago. That's the thing I think people forget, and that's what the Packers are hanging their hat on, is they won 11 games last year. Yes, the offense flamed out in the playoffs in that loss to the Eagles, but they believe that they're still an ascending team, and the addition of Matthew Golden, the first-round pick, as you guys know, the first-round receiver these guys have drafted here in 100 years. Yeah. They don't draft
2002. It's been a minute.
It feels like 100 years.
It does. It does. Let's stay with Matthew Golden. Then you've obviously had a front row seat to him so far here in training camp. What have you seen?
So, Shae, just yesterday, we were standing right here on the sideline, and Rich Bisaccia, the Packers special teams coach, came over, and Rich loves to tell young players who to watch. Last year, Tucker Kraft, their tight end, he told them, look up film of Mark Bavaro. Now, he had no idea who Mark Bavaro was, right? But Mark Bavaro, the bruising tight end from the New York Giants of the 80s, and Tucker Kraft looked him up. Well, he told me yesterday that he's already got someone for Matthew Golden. It's Bullet Bob Hayes. For people who don't know, played for the Cowboys in the 60s, a receiver, but also was an Olympic sprinter. Bisaccia said he reminds him of Bullet Bob Hayes, and I asked Matthew Golden yesterday, do you have any idea who Bullet Bob Hayes? He says, well, I looked him up and I noticed two things. He's fast like me and he wears number 22 like I am wearing. They're calling him Bullet. Actually, Rich is calling him Bullet. The name hasn't caught on yet, but if he keeps making plays like he has the first couple days of training camp, that nickname might stick.
Really quick, Rye, he wears 22 because 22 teams took him, or passed on him, I should say, in the draft. So it's just a little quick reminder. I love that story. Go ahead.
Rob, you can't tell us that this is, or Shae said this is one of the youngest teams in all of football, and you can't expect them to know who Bullet Bob Hayes is.
That's true.
As well. But I do have this question about this defense. They're replacing Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes at the cornerback position. Jeff Hafley's entering his second year as the defensive coordinator. What is the expectation of this defense in his second year at the helm?
RC, you would love to play for Jeff Hafley because he sees the game from the defensive backfield forward. The safeties, Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, those two guys were rookies last year. Xavier came in as a free agent, had an unbelievable year. I think they just go from there with this defense. They know more about what those guys can do. The beginning of last season was a bit of a feeling out process, but if you look at this defense from the secondary on up, that's where the improvement needs to come, is the front part of it, the pass rush. Guys like Lucas Van Ness, Rashawn Gary, they've got to step forward. Devontae Wyatt, young defensive tackle that they have big hopes for. That's the next evolution for Jeff Hafley in year 2. But I'm telling you, you would love to play for this guy.
The thing I loved about him was this defense didn't sit back like we saw them the years prior, right? They attacked offenses. Edgerrin Cooper became a big-time player, and I want to see more of that evolution for this defense.
Well, and the thing they relied a lot on last year was takeaways, right? And we know that that's not always sustainable. So you've got to, when you're not getting takeaways, what are you doing to still win the game? And that's where Hafley and those guys have tried to put their energy, because the takeaways, it's a fickle deal, right? Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't.
Right, in such a competitive division, too. Before we say goodbye to Rob, like me, grew up in Chicago. This is his 29th Packers camp. So he's really, put roots down here in Wisconsin. Why?
Well, Shae, when I was growing up in the Chicago area, I didn't think anybody actually lived here. I thought it was where everyone from Illinois went for the weekend.
Don't say that so loud.
Both of my kids were born and raised here. They're both going to college in the state of Wisconsin, both college basketball players in the state of Wisconsin.
Love it.
Maybe Coach Smart can, on the transfer portal, take a look. But, this is home. And everyone asks, are you a Bears fan? I am not a Bears fan.
Yeah, okay, perfect. We'll leave it right there. He mentioned Shaka Smart. Yes, Marquette's basketball coach is with us today. Shaka Smart, we're going to talk to him in just a little bit. Rob, I think, has work to do. He's going to go watch camp.
Watch some practice.
He's got to go watch some practice. We appreciate
Shae's mad at you right now.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you noticed a change in tone when you said you're not a Bears fan.
Right, threw me under the bus a little, but it's all right. Rob, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Guys, back to you in the studio. SportsCenter's 50 States in 50 Days takes us to Green Bay, Wisconsin. There you see the quarterback. That's Jordan Love getting some work in earlier today. We are indeed at Packers training camp, and it is packed with people that bleed the green and gold here today. Sometimes we got to take a break from football. We're going to talk a little hoops, because this state feels like they're good at everything right now. The Brewers are on fire. The Packers are getting going, and we got Shaka Smart, the head coach of Marquette basketball, joining us here now. So good to be with you, Shaka. Thank you so much. First of all, I'm going to brag on them for just a minute. 4 seasons with Marquette, they made the tournament every year. No big deal. But you and Coach LaFleur have kind of developed this relationship, right? Like sometimes he goes to your games and practices, you come here with your players. How did that all come to be?
Well, he's been great. We've just had a mutual connection that connected us. We brought our team up here a couple years ago, and we got to do team building in Lambeau Field, which was a lot of fun. Came out here to watch practice. Coach LaFleur actually let me speak to the guys after practice, so it's been a ton of fun being associated with the Packers.
Coach, you now coach at Marquette, where basketball is such a huge deal, and obviously we're down here in Lambeau, and you can see all the fans just stationed everywhere. Tell me what makes Wisconsin sports fans so passionate.
They're very loyal. I grew up in Madison, and if you're not a Packers fan in this state, then you're wrong. Basketball-wise, there's a couple different options. Obviously, the Bucks on the pro side, but being at Marquette, there's a real special sense of loyalty and pride in the university and in the team, and our guys can feel it. So it's really meaningful to be at a place like that.
I know you're a Jordan Love fan.
Huge. I got to sit next to him today.
That's right.
I sat in the quarterbacks meeting. This was like, I'm like pinching myself. It's me, Jordan Love, and Matt LaFleur, and I'm like, one of these things is not like the other. But it was great to be able to sit in there.
So how did that fandom come to be? I mean, this is only his 3rd year as the starter here in Green Bay.
Well, he came to a game a couple years ago, and his humility is what struck me. Also, he looks like a basketball player.
Yes.
Like he looks like
And
he could
he
step
would know,
foot
okay?
on the court. They like to say in scouting, that's what they look like. So he could step foot on the court and hold his own. In fact, he won the shooting competition this morning in the team meeting against a defensive player.
You know, Coach, you talk about the connection to Jordan Love, sitting with Matt LaFleur, getting an opportunity to speak to the team. How huge is it to have that connection with a Marquette and your players, along with the Green Bay Packers here, to show, hey, this is the next step, this is professionalism, but this is also sort of the connectivity of the teams within the state?
It's a great point, Ryan, because sometimes, and you know this, when you're playing for a university, you can get in that little bubble, and you can feel a lack of perspective sometimes. So being here around the Packers lets us understand that, hey, there's a lot bigger things going on than us. It also gives us an opportunity to learn from people doing things at a high level. When I sat in on the quarterbacks meeting this morning, for example, the level of capacity that those guys have for learning and for communicating and retaining information was through the roof.
Let's talk a little bit about your squad. Number 16 recruiting class coming in. Nigel James, I believe, is who headlines the whole thing. So tell me a little bit about your squad this year.
I love our squad, love our guys. We do it a little bit different. We really try to prioritize our returning players and our incoming high school players. So we did not add anyone from the transfer portal. A lot of people look at us like we're crazy with that, but we prioritize relationships. That's a huge part of what we do. Every week it's different team activities, and we spend a lot of time every day on personal growth. Obviously the player side is important, but the personal growth, helping these guys grow as people because they're in such a formative time of their lives.
It's interesting because the Packers kind of take a similar model, right? Very homegrown this team is. There's not a lot of trades that happen, especially at the quarterback position. Marquette, very similar. You just mentioned you didn't really go to the transfer portal. How are you able to do that? Because every other basketball coach I talk to, the transfer portal is such a headache. How are you able to do that?
Well, I think it's because of the guys we have and the families that they come from. The parents have never been more important than they are today in college sports because, think about it, in the spring there's a decision to make. Do I go back or do I go somewhere else? And that's a family decision. And so when the family's on one accord with the coaching staff in terms of the development of the young man, put basketball aside for a second, but his development as a person, then we really got a chance to have some connectivity.
Yeah, it says a lot about you as a head coach, too.
You know what, too, Coach? Dabo Swinney sort of subscribes to the same sort of mindset, right? He wants to develop the players that they recruit and be homegrown. Why is that important to you, though?
Because I'm a kid that was raised by a single mom who looked at my coaches like they were 10 feet tall. And for me and my development as a player and as a person, that was everything. So I don't think that we can beat our chest about saying growth really matters to us and then bring 5 or 6 grad transfers over the top of our young players because that's going to stunt their growth. And that's not to take away from other people's way of doing things. The great thing about sports, as you know, is there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. It's just how we choose to do it. We call it our way.
I love it.
All right, so Coach has an open practice. July 31st, the Golden Eagles will have an open practice at the Al McGuire Center. Are we inviting any Packers to roll through?
The Packers are busy. The Packers are getting ready for week 1.
Yeah.
But certainly any basketball fans in the Milwaukee area that want to take in some great hoops. And that's one of the cool things about being at a basketball school is that we'll have an open practice in July, and it'll be really well attended.
That's awesome.
Hey, Coach, I love that. And for you, Coach, what's the next step for your team? We obviously see you guys in the NCAA tournament year after year after year. How do you take that next step in advance?
Great. It's a great question. I think the next step for us is continual growth in understanding what goes into winning. I'm a firm believer that before you can know what goes into winning, you have to know what goes into losing. And so understanding at a high level what our advantages are, because every team has advantages and no team is perfect, but really pressing and leaning into those, that's the key for our team this year. And really taking advantage of the connectivity that we have because of the relationships and the time we spend on it.
Well, something that death taxes seeing Shaka Smart in March, I feel like, is what we're all saying, right?
Absolutely.
Shaka, we really appreciate the time.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoy training camp. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you,
Coach.